Raider Nation. Thank you for joining us on the Only Nation podcast, brought to you by the Raider Ramble and sponsored by Chucky's Thugs. My name is Heidi, but you may know me as Kevlar Prom Dress or even Raider Ladybug. I'm here with T3 Raider Facts, and we're ready to talk some Raiders football together.
Hello, Heidi. You know, this is not going to necessarily be a pleasant show, but we're going to get through this thing together. So let's go.
Today on the show, we'll talk about the loss to Kansas City, what we expect going forward for the rest of the season, but most importantly, how we can pick up a much-needed win on Saturday against the Cleveland Browns.
Okay, Raider Nation, we would love to hear from you, so here's how you can get in touch with us. Give us a call on the Only Nation podcast voicemail line at 904-701-8667. That's 904-701-8667. You can also check us out on the web at onlynationpod.com.
Here's the latest Raider news.
Dropped passes, fumbles, interceptions, sacks, and a lack of offensive momentum. In addition to the key losses of Darren Waller and Denzel Perryman, proved to be too much for the Las Vegas Raiders, they fell into a hole early, and after going into the half down 35-3, succumbed to the division rival Kansas City Chiefs by a score of 48-9 at Arrowhead Stadium. 3 first-half turnovers resulted in 21 Kansas City points, which was simply too much for the Raiders to overcome.
And we've talked about this all season, the Raiders getting off to a slow start and playing from behind and how they just can't do that. This may be the low point of the season. I've heard so many Raider fans on Raider Nation Radio and on various talk shows and podcasts already. And here we're just recording on Monday night, so the wounds are still fresh. But Raider Nation is really reeling from this, and my fear is that the coaches have already thrown in the white towel. That can't be good. Hopefully we get a better effort this coming Saturday against the Cleveland Browns. The team can't give up yet, and I think we can hopefully get good effort from some players who will be going forward. Not necessarily everybody from this team will be going forward, but we need some of the key pieces to work hard and prove their worth going forward.
Yeah, and the Raiders are not completely eliminated from the playoff picture. But let's face it, they're eliminated. It's just not mathematically yet. And the teams that we needed to lose yesterday, they lost. Thing is, Raiders just couldn't do their part by taking the Chiefs down.
I would have liked to have seen the Broncos lose.
Would have been nice. Another remarkable performance was turned in by third-year receiver Hunter Renfrow. His 13 catches on the day was his best outing as a pro, and was just one short of tying the single-game record for the Raiders in its entire history. He currently leads the team in targets, receiving yards, catches, and receiving touchdowns. Also, his 30 catches over the last 3 games are the most in franchise history in such a span. It was his 3rd straight game with at least 8 catches and 100-plus yards receiving, and his 6th game this year where he had at least 7 catches.
You know, we can't continue to say enough good things about Hunter Renfrow. This is a 5th-round pick from the 2019 draft, and he just continues to elevate his game. He finds a way to get open, and he makes big plays. And I will even give him a pass on the one fumble. Fumbles are going to happen every once in a while, but you don't see that happen from Renfrow all that often. But he continues to be steady and dependable, Derek Carr's favorite receiver. And when you take away Darren Waller, you know that Derek Carr is going his way, and yet he still comes up with the plays. And he does it week after week after week.
The Chiefs knew that the Raiders were going to go to him, and they still couldn't stop him. They did a great job of stopping everyone else, but they couldn't stop Renfrow. He's on fire. This year, he's really shown how much he's developed and really taking that next step in his career.
You know, they talk about comparisons with him all the time with Fred Biletnikoff, and I know that there's some similarities there in terms of size and maybe speed as well, but you got to admire the fact that he has the hands and the dependability, and he can run the routes. So all the comparisons really stand up. But if you had a guy who could consistently get him the ball, and if you had a good defense to back it up, everything working together, you would see him on a different plane than you see him right now.
The Raiders' defense tightened up in the second half, only giving up 13 points. In a day where bright spots were few and far between, one was found along the defensive front. Rookie defensive end Malcolm Kuntz, one of this year's third-round picks, and a player who's been inactive most of the year, got a big sack in the third quarter. He has now recorded 2 sacks in the 2 games he has played so far this season.
Was so happy to see Malcolm Kuntz get some burn and to see him pick up his second sack. And as we mentioned, 2 sacks in the 2 games that he's played, that's a good number. And that's a number that we can build on. So if we can continue to get good, solid play from our picks like Malcolm Kuntz, we can see that there's a lot of good pieces on this team that can continue to build. We just need to have coaching, and we need to have good, solid pieces all across the board, not just at that one particular area of the field, but we need it on the offensive line, in the receiving core, in the backfield, in the linebacking core, and particularly on the defensive front.
The Raiders do a really good job of drafting later in the later rounds. It's the early rounds where they tend to make mistakes. Kuntz is just another example, just like Hunter Renfrow, just like Max Crosby, getting picked up in the later rounds. And so far, he's looking impressive in the 2 games that he's played.
And I almost wonder what would have happened if he had been active for a good part of the early part of the season. He's gotten 2 sacks in 2 games. Who knows what he could have done if he had been available for much of the season.
Derek Carr was 33 of 45 for 263 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. His counterpart, Patrick Mahomes, went 20 of 24 for 258 yards and 2 touchdowns with 0 interceptions. The Chiefs gained a total of 372 yards in total offense, while the Raiders amassed 290 total yards. The Raiders had some opportunities early, but the turnovers overshadowed any momentum the Raiders could manage to find.
And the Raiders, I thought, had a really good opportunity to answer, even though they gave up that early touchdown. They were driving, and they were faced with a 3rd and 3 close to midfield. And Heidi, you and I talked about this off air. For some strange reason, the play call was to send all the receivers deep. That would have been an excellent chance for a check down to just pick up the first down, maintain the drive, keep it going, and keep the momentum going. But for some strange reason, they decided to send all their receivers deep. Nobody was open. Carr took the sack, and the momentum was gone. And at that point, I think we finally started to lose it.
Yeah, that first play from scrimmage was disappointing to see Jacobs drop the ball and have us give up a touchdown right then and there. But, you know, it wasn't the nail in the coffin. There were still plenty of chances for the Raiders to come onto the field and score and get that momentum going. But it just seemed every time that there was something that was starting to click, it just came crashing down, usually with a turnover.
And I guess the thing that I really want to know is, you come out of the gate on first down right away, you decide to run the ball to the short side of the field, knowing that you can't run the ball anyway, knowing that's not the strong side of your line, but you decide to go ahead and run anyway. You're basically wasting it down. And of course, it turns out as worse as it possibly could.
The Raiders now have a losing record and have won only 1 game since the bye week, way back in week 8. Let's talk about what the team mentality is right now, the state of the Raider Nation, and what the team can do to turn this thing around.
Raider Nation, here we're pulling up the couch and we're kind of going through therapy sessions here. Now, remember, we all remember the date, 12/12/12, back in 2012. It was supposed to be the end of the world. Well, this past Sunday was 12/12/21, 12 in reverse. See what I did there? So if you look at this as the end of the world, it's time to focus on rebuilding this thing. I don't think any Raiders players and most of the Raiders fans felt any lower than we all did on Sunday. So let this be our intervention. Let this be our bottoming out point. I don't know who the GM is going to be next year, who the new head coach is going to be. Hell, I don't even know who the quarterback is going to be. But I will say this. Revenge comes, and it comes hard. And Raider Nation will be back. Now, I'm forecasting it now. playoffs in 2022?
My analysis is just simply that Chiefs game was horrible. If anything could go wrong, it did in every aspect of play. Derek Carr, that one interception wasn't his fault. That was on Foster Moreau.
Absolutely.
He did, I guess, okay on paper, but he was being pressured constantly. And he didn't have a lot of time in the pocket, in a clean pocket, where he could make a throw. The offensive line they were just plain horrible during the Chiefs game. I can't even find any words for it. The Raiders have the worst pass blocking duo on the offensive line in the league, and that's Brandon Parker and Alex Leatherwood. They are giving up pressures on 11% of plays. They're both tied for first as the worst in the league. As long as they keep playing like that, it doesn't matter who you have as a quarterback, they're not going to be successful.
And when you're not able to run the ball, then the defense can really load up the box and just send everybody in to pressure the quarterback and get those turnovers. So the Raiders need to improve that offensive line in more ways than one. They need to improve it from a ground game standpoint, but they also need to improve it from a pass blocking standpoint. So things are about as low as they can go as far as the offensive line goes. And I know we've given Tom Cable a lot of credit in the past, but this is not a good line and not a good look.
Yeah, and who knows who's going to be the offensive line coach next year? It probably won't be Cable. We will probably have some new players on the line. Hopefully Denzel Good will be back and he'll be healthy, so that will make a difference. But the line is really weak. Now, don't get me wrong, the entire team, this was a losing effort by that entire team. Derek Carr is not absolved of responsibility, but I understand why he had so much trouble. The defense, they gave up, 48 points? No, the Chiefs did score one touchdown on defense, but the defense gave up over 40 points. You're not going to win any game in the National Football League by giving up that many points. Yes, they were out on the field a lot and worn out and tired, simply because the offense wasn't getting anything going. But if the Raiders could have failed in any area, they did. Team mentality right now, I think a lot of players have mailed in their desire for this year. I think they've checked out. The Raider Nation as a fan base is pissed off. I can't deny that. Reading on Twitter, reading on Facebook, seeing videos on YouTube, Raider Nation is pissed off. They think they deserve better, and they do. I don't think the team is going to be able to turn this around this year. It would be nice if we got to do, like you said, for the Cowboys, play Grinch. You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch. And be able to knock off some teams' playoff hopes. But ours are pretty much done. It's just going to take a new regime coming in and rebuilding again.
Yeah, we have to just look for one shining moment, and maybe that one shining moment is this coming week. But as I heard mentioned several times today on different radio programs, if the coaches have already thrown in the white towel, which I think they did when they decided to go for the field goal at the end of the first half rather than go for a touchdown, and even Gruden went for a 2-point conversion on the last play of the final game against Denver, which they didn't get and ended up finishing with a 7-9 record. They went down swinging. This team did not go down swinging. And I'm hoping that they can get some of that back against Cleveland and decide that they're going to fight all the way. I'll remind fans that an 0-10-1 Detroit Lions team came home against Minnesota a couple of weeks ago. And they were down to the wire at the very end of the game, but they didn't give up, and they scored a touchdown to bring victory out of the jaws of defeat on the last play of the game to win their only win so far this year. The Raiders can take that to heart and say, even though they're on the road, and they have played better on the road this year than they have at home, they can do what they need to do, and they can snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. Now, maybe that's enough to start making things look better toward the end of the year. But even if it doesn't, if they can just get that one brief shining moment in Cleveland and come back with a win, that's good enough for me.
All right, let's get a score prediction for this week's game against the Browns. T3, why don't you go first?
All right. Now, if we can somehow get Waller back and somehow get a little bit of a ground game going, fingers crossed, the defense could keep this thing close. But Cleveland is on a bit of a roll right now. They're at home, and they are feeling a sense of urgency as we get nearer to the playoffs. I don't see the Raiders pulling this one out, but I've been wrong before. The final score I'm calling is Cleveland 31 and the Raiders 20.
I think there's a really good chance that Waller's going to be shut down for the year. If we would have won yesterday, that might be different. But I think there's a good chance he's going to get shut down. Make sure he doesn't get injured further. Just give him a vacation for the rest of the season. So I'm not sure if we'll be seeing him again or not. The ground game, do you blame that on the offensive line or do you blame that on the running backs? It's equal opportunity. I mean, it's on both of them.
I think it goes spread around. Yeah, you're right.
I don't know realistically if the ground game is going to be able to get moving with the line the way it is and the way that Jacobs has been playing. He's had very few good games this year. I don't know if he's injured or just the mentality is wrong, but something's different. He's definitely not the player he was the last couple of years. Cleveland, they have a tough team. They really do. They have some stars and they are kind of on a roll. I think they're going to come out on top. And I believe it's going to be Cleveland 27 and the Raiders 13.
I think for the first time in a long time, you and I are in agreement on what's going to happen during the game. Maybe not the scores, but who the winner is going to be.
Yeah, we've disagreed for a few weeks in a row. That's right.
May we both be wrong together this time.
Well, if we're wrong together, we each get to make each other a crow pie.
Gladly.
All right.
T3's Top 3.
Here is this week's top 3. Number 1, as a defender of Derek Carr all year, I think it's time to start looking at other options. Now, I'm not one of those people who say that he's trash and that he needs to go immediately, but this is where the organization's failure to come up with a solid developmental backup plan over the Gruden era has come back to bite them. Perhaps now the organization can think about bringing in a guy who will end up being the future of the Raiders. And that may include extending Derek for 1, maybe 2 more years, but nothing long term. Number 2, running backs in the NFL are a dime a dozen. Josh Jacobs is not going to get that 5th-year option picked up, at least that's my opinion. But would you consider trading him if you're the Raiders? Well, I wouldn't think that would be such a risky venture at this point. The injury history is already there, but if you could then convert his talent into some valuable capital, it just might be worth the risk. And number 3, at the end of the year, I think Mark Davis needs to sit down with Gus Bradley and at least do the diligence of discussing the head coaching position with him. He's made great strides with the defense this year, and I think the Raiders need to seriously think about keeping him, Richard Smith, and Ron Miles all together. It might work, it might not, but I think Mark owes Gus at least that much. I'm not saying that Gus Bradley should be the next head coach, but I am saying he should at least be given some proper consideration. And that is this week's top 3.
I like Derek Carr. I like him as a person, and I have liked him as a player. But this year, he has collapsed again in the second half of the season. And it's 3 or 4 years in a row now. I think that he might need a change of scenery. I know that he has said that he always wants to be a Raider. He wants to retire a Raider after winning a Super Bowl with Las Vegas. But I'm not so sure that it wouldn't be better for him to go somewhere else and start fresh. Be surrounded by a team that is stronger and more talented. And see what he can do in a place like maybe Pittsburgh. You know, they have long coaching tenures there. They worry about the defense. Raiders, they did address the defense a little bit, but for the last 20 years, the defense has pretty much been an afterthought. As far as Josh Jacobs goes, I'm not sure we could get much draft capital from him. Like you said, running backs are a dime a dozen. If we were offered maybe even a third-round pick, that might be the best offer that they could get. I don't see him getting his fifth-year option picked up either. I'm not saying trading him is a bad idea. It's just I don't see it helping. We wouldn't be able to get a first-round draft pick for him, that's for sure. Not that it matters if we have first-round draft picks, because we can't seem to convert with any successful picks in that round.
Yeah, there's the rub. I think, if you make a deal with another team, it's like, please, anybody but a first-round draft pick.
Yeah. Give us a third. Give us a fourth. We're cool with that. Those we can draft good.
Right.
And Gus Bradley, I think that even though the defense has struggled the last few weeks, I do think that he is a good defensive coordinator and should get consideration for the head coaching job. I really don't want to see him as head coach, but I would love to see Richard Smith and Ron Miles and him all together, as defensive coaches. I don't think that's going to happen. I think the coaching staff is going to get pretty gutted. It's just going to be a matter of time. But I think Mark Davis is ready to blow up the place and just get all new coaches in, get a new GM in, hopefully appoint a good president of football operations, and get the team surrounded by men who are football men and know what they're talking about, and not just hiring their buddies that, they've been an offensive coordinator for 30 years. He's my buddy and I'm going to hire him. No. Hire a young coach. Hire someone who's up and coming and can learn and ride a wave of success. I don't want to see an old school coach being recycled. Get some fresh blood in there.
I agree. I think we need to turn the page. We need to go probably outside the organization, which was never an Al Davis thing until he went the Shanahan route. We saw how that ended up. So maybe this is the time that we turn the page and go a different direction, bring in some fresh blood, like you said, and transition away from this era of futility that we've been mired in for so many years.
Mm-hmm. All right, give us a call at 904-701-8667. Leave a voicemail or text message at that number, or send in a message via social media, and we'll share your thoughts. And T3, why don't you tell us about Raider Roots this week?
Okay, now, Raider Nation, if you weren't mad before about everything that's happened this past week, 1977 is where we're going this year, and it's not going to make you any more happy when you get to the end of the season and we have the AFC Championship game against Denver, and I'll just say it, and I'll keep saying it to the day I die. It was a fumble.
It was a fumble. That's happened a couple times in Raiders team history, hasn't it?
Yes.
Okay, and how about we find out what we do or don't know?
It is now time for another edition of Did You Know? In this segment, I will ask Heidi and the rest of our listening audience a Raiders-related question with 3 possible answers to choose from. It's multiple choice, so just give it your best guess. So here goes. This is a fun one this week. In this past week's game, Hunter Renfrow gathered in 13 passes, which, as we mentioned, is only one off of the Raiders' record of 14, which is held by 2 Raider players. Hall of Famer Tim Brown is one, but who is the other? Is it A, tight end Jared Cook, B, tight end Brandon Myers, or C, tight end Zach Miller? Heidi, what do you think?
I think it could be any of them.
It was a tight end.
Well, yeah, I figured that out. D, all of the above.
Only one is the answer.
Oh, okay. I'm just going to go with A, tight end Jared Cook.
The correct answer is B, Brandon Myers, of all people. And, of course, this happened against Cleveland back in 2012. He caught 14 balls. The Raiders didn't win that day. But, again, he tied the record for the most receptions by a Raider in a single game, Tim Brown being the other. And that is this week's version of Did You Know?
Well, congratulations, Brandon Myers. I do remember you, but I don't remember that game.
And now, Raider Nation, it's time for Heidi's Heroes.
Flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could it be?
My hero this week is a Raider that, he's been a hero before, and he'll be a hero again. It is tight end Darren Waller. Las Vegas Raiders have named him as their nomination for Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year. An article by Jairo Alvarado, he wrote, "The Las Vegas Raiders have announced Pro Bowl tight end Darren Waller as their nominee for the Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year award. Waller is being considered for the league's most prestigious award. Each of the league's 32 nominees was announced Tuesday, and as a nominee, Waller will wear a Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year helmet decal through the end of the season in recognition for his outstanding community service off the field as well as excellence on the field. You look at maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I was probably the last person that would even be considered for that role. I do find gratitude, and it allows me to reflect and see how far I've come, and how much I changed from the inside out, and how much I do care about the community that I'm in, the world I'm in, and shedding my light in a positive way," said Waller. His career with the Baltimore Ravens ended early with NFL suspensions, and since his arrival to the Raiders, Waller has turned his NFL career around and become a Pro Bowler, and arguably one of the best tight ends in the league. In his 3 years with the Raiders, Waller has been open about overcoming substance abuse and his day-to-day battles with drug addiction. "I want people to be able to say, wow, being around him changed me or motivated me, or it made me feel loved or safe or whatever it was. I want them to be able to say that because I was around them," Waller added. Waller has conducted concerts, food drives, youth football camps, virtual meetings with family in need, and help kids navigate through the same stresses he dealt with growing up. But he is most grateful for being able to send people who are dealing with drug addiction to treatment. The 2021 Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year award will be announced during the NFL Honors on the Thursday before Super Bowl 56 on ABC.
And, regardless of what you say about him as a player, and he has accomplished a lot in a short amount of time as a player, Darren Waller is a man, and he is an inspirational leader among men. And I will say I could not be more proud of the journey he has made, the demons he has conquered, and the walk he continues to walk every day, not just within Raider Nation, but among his fellow man and woman.
Yes, and that is why Darren Waller is my Heidi's hero for the week.
And, he's our hero for the year. I'm just going to say that right now.
Yeah, he is one of the good guys. He has completely turned his life around, and it's amazing everything that he does. How humble he is as well. Add to that, he's a damn good football player.
I am happy to say that I wore the number 83 when I was in high school playing tight end, no less. I was a small tight end, but that was my number. And I'm happy to say that it was the same number that Darren Waller now wears.
All right. And that about does it for this week on the Only Nation podcast. If you'd like to help support the show, you can send in a donation at paypal.me/onlynationpod. I'd like to thank this week's sponsor, Chucky Suggs, for sponsoring this episode. You can find me, Heidi Stabbert, on social media as @KeblerPromDress on Twitter and Instagram, or Heidi Stabbert on Facebook. You can also find me on YouTube on Captain Jack Rackham's channel every other Tuesday night. I join the DC wench Peggy Holmes and Andrea Trask on the Captain and His Wenches show.
Yeah, I just want to mention, too, that is a great show. I tune in every other Tuesday night for that. If you want to hear some good, inspiring chatter, but you got to get permission to come aboard. So make sure you tune in to Captain Jack Rackham's channel, and you'll get to hear our gal Heidi along with Peggy Holmes and Andrea Trask. So make sure you tune into that. Now, having said that, Raider Nation, we want you with us every step of the way during the season. Good or bad, we're going to be here. So here's what we'd like you to do. Send us your name and address so we can send you some free Raiders swag and podcast stickers. Call us, tell us what you want to know, throw us an interesting nugget that we can use on one of our upcoming episodes, and become a part of what we're doing here. We want you on board with us. Remember, this is the only nation, and we want you to be a part of it. So call us 904-701-8667. That's 904-701-8667. Call us now and join the Only Nation podcast family. There are two easy ways to find me on social media. You can send me a tweet at T3_sports703, or you can hit me up on Facebook at Tom, Thom Jones. I want to also thank you for all your continued support of the Raider Roots podcast. This week, we're going back to the year 1977, and as we mentioned, yes, it was a fumble.
And it had nothing to do with Tom Brady. As always, we look forward to hearing from you. Until next time, everyone, go Raiders.
We are not just a nation, we are the only nation. It's time to get ready for a trip to Cleveland. Raiders.